Welcome into MLB Hot Stove Daily. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us here at the Upside. Huge news tonight is that Juan Soto is expected to agree with the team tonight. That comes from several different sources. Jon Heyman, Mike Puma included. Jon Heyman says the favorites around the winter meetings anyway, that the Yankees have quiet confidence more than other teams do about their ability to retain Juan Soto. Take that for whatever you think it's worth. But the Yankees seem very confident about their ability to retain Juan Soto. I would have been shocked to hear that news a couple of weeks ago. I thought the Yankees would have been priced out by now, but the earlier reporting today from Jon Heyman and others is that both New York Mets and the New York Yankees were over the $710 million threshold for Juan Soto. We'll dig in on the market for Juan Soto, where he could go, the news from Mike Puma, among others, as far as where Juan Soto is going to go. But of course, there is so much more happening at the winter meetings other than Juan Soto. Other teams have to be able to sign their guys. We saw a big move by the San Francisco Giants, finally getting one of their top free agent targets in probably the last 5-6 years. They've struck out year after year after year, and they finally get the job done, bringing in Willy Adames, 7 years, $182 million. We'll discuss the deal, what it looks like, how it relates to other deals that have been signed before it. Is it a good deal? Do the Giants have more to do offensively? What are they going to do on the starting pitching side? Are they still connected to Corbin Burns? The Astros have several different irons in the fire right now as far as both starting pitching. They're also looking at possibly bringing back Alex Bregman. Willy Adames, their fallback for Bregman, is obviously off the board. Does this mean they're going to increase their offer to Alex Bregman, or do they stick to their guns? Headlines out of Houston also say that they're looking to deal Ryan Presley. Devin Williams of the Brewers is said to be available. Helsley is said to not necessarily be available, but they're taking calls on him from the St. Louis Cardinals. There is a lot of news out there to get to, and we shall get to it very quickly here. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and let's get into it. We'll start where we do every show with Juan Soto. The news, of course, that I referenced earlier is that Juan Soto is expected to agree to terms tonight with a contender out there. Terms are said to be in the neighborhood of 15 plus years. We'll see what the number ultimately turns out to be. But according to Jon Heyman, the Yankees seem to have a little bit more confidence than the other teams in the race. Mike Puma, New York Mets beat reporter anyway, says he expects a deal to be agreed to tonight. The Mets and the Yankees seem to be the two teams that have gone clearly over the $700 million threshold. The Blue Jays have seemed to take a little bit of a step back, supposedly according to national reports, while the Dodgers literally haven't given an offer out there in the past week or so. So Red Sox are still in there, but the Yankees seem to have a little bit more confidence than the others. That coming from Jon Heyman when he was speaking with other reporters at the hotel tonight. The winter meetings are underway. They're at the Hilton Anatole Hotel in Dallas, Texas. Hopefully we'll be able to get out there for you in the next couple of days. But the winter meetings is off with a roar anyway. We have a couple of new Hall of Famers that are going to be inducted into Cooperstown next year. Those going to Dave Parker and Dick Allen. Congratulations on those two players. Well deserving, and ultimately it took way too long for those two guys to get in there. It was an 8-man ballot. You had 3 votes of the committee had 3 votes each that they could vote on these guys. They had to get over the 75% threshold. With only 3 votes to get 2 of those guys across is incredible work by that committee. Realizing, hey, we need to get some guys off of this ballot and in, and they got the job done. So congratulations to that committee for doing the right thing and getting those guys into Cooperstown. But as far as Juan Soto, what does he look like in that New York Yankees lineup? Well, we saw that last year, the impact, how good he was in front of Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge said that's probably the biggest thing that he saw with Juan Soto was bringing him in really helped him capture that MVP in the American League. I mean, all the pitches that Juan Soto took, specifically, he said was the single biggest reason why he had such a big year. Now, understandably, Aaron Judge is a great player. Absolutely one of the greatest players we've seen in modern baseball. But Juan Soto's ability to take some of that pressure off of him, produce, be on base, for him to drive him in, and then, of course, for him to wear down the pitcher in front of him, we get to see a whole bunch of pitches that maybe a bullpen ace coming out throws 7 or 8 pitches to Juan Soto, whereas somebody else who takes that role of Juan Soto in the lineup next year may only take 3 or 4, and then Aaron Judge is left with a little bit more mystery as far as where, what type of repertoire, what type of pitches he's going to be throwing that night. So we'll see where Juan Soto goes. I think he fits absolutely spectacularly in that Yankees lineup. They really had to get him back in there because their backup plans, of course, they could have gone to Bregman, they could have gone to Adames, they could go out there and get Nolan Arenado. There's a lot of different opportunities out there, sure, but none of them are at the level of Juan Soto, and to me, they would have taken a step back no matter what they did without Juan Soto coming back. So that's item number 1 if the Yankees are able to retain him. The other team that's said to be over $700 million and competing with the Yankees most fervently is the New York Mets. We've never really seen a player on the New York Yankees or on the New York Mets be competed for before, like the way the Mets and Yankees are competing for Juan Soto. That's why the number is getting absolutely out there. We saw the number last year for Shohei Ohtani, 10 years, $700 million was so much of a deferral. Real money value really put it around $46 million in today's money. He's going to clear that number. It looks like he's going to get well over that 46 number as far as average annual value. We'll see where that number goes. But for Juan Soto, he would be the cog in that New York Mets lineup. If he doesn't want to be in that shadow of Aaron Judge, he can quickly go over to the Mets. And sure, Lindor is a fantastic player. Finished second in the MVP voting on the National League side. But come on, we're talking about a true dominant player in Juan Soto that would immediately take over as the number 1 piece in that offense. And of course, he's 26 years old. He's going to just be entering his prime right now. You're going to get 6 to 7 A-plus prime years of that deal. And of course, the back half you might have to live with, but we're talking about monopoly money when we talk about the owner, Steve Cohen. So we'll see if the Cohen camp there can get it done. Red Sox are said to still be in the running there, kind of as an also-ran at this point. The 2 New York teams have stepped out a little bit further, according to most reports that you see out there. Blue Jays have taken a little bit of a step back. They've started to look at some backup options here. Dodgers still seem to be interested. They're on the periphery. If Juan Soto says, hey, you know, if you guys can get up to 675, 700, I would rather sign with you guys than say one of these two New York teams. That is also in play, but it seems like the favorite right now, at least from the hotel lobby, according to John Heyman, would have to be considered the New York Yankees, with the New York Mets a very, very, very close second. Welcome in JG, welcome in Willard, Tim, Heel. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. We do cover Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL. During the offseason, we have our MLB Hot Stove Daily Show that we have for you guys around 9 o'clock every weekday. And with the winter meetings, we're going to have tons of coverage coming from the winter meetings for you guys here. I already took off of work, so anytime anything happens, you will hear it first here. So make sure you join us, hit that like, and subscribe. I am doing well, JG. Astros are looking to trade Presley. They shouldn't have given him an extension to see if the Astros can get a low-end prospect or two. I think Astros fans are a little hard on Presley. I understand he had a rough time against the Tigers, etc., but we're talking about the closer on your staff until this most recent season with Josh Hader. Because Josh Hader was brought in, the bullpen got moved around. Presley was no longer in that 9th inning role. His role was up in the air for the most part, and I wouldn't really blame too much of that on Presley. I would blame the front office for going out there and spending on Hader when they already had a pretty good bullpen, where I would have spent that money is retaining some of my own guys, like Alex Bregman, or like Framber Valdez, or Tucker that's going to be hitting free agency next year. Those are some big question marks the Astros are going to have to answer. As far as Bregman, they have an offer out there for 6 for $156. Astros and their owner Jim Crane have been notorious for not willing to go past 5-year deals for free agents. We've seen that with Jose Altuve, but they've let other guys go. Garrett Cole has left because the money wasn't right, the years, etc. They stick to their numbers. And with Jim Crane there, I don't see them really extending beyond the offer they already have out there for him. Bregman, I expect to leave and go elsewhere. What could they expect out of Presley? I'd imagine they'd want something back in return at the major league level. I'm sure they'd love some minor league prospects as well, but that prospect pool is a little bit limited from what they have in the minor leagues. they need to get some major league talent back if I'm the Astros for a Pressly trade. We'll check in on what his value is when we get to our trade segment of the show. Willard, no disrespect, Pressly deserved to be traded. Crazy pitches to the Tigers cost the series. Again, small sample size theater here. Pressly's been your best reliever for the better part of 7 years, the entire reign of your dominance. I would be shocked if the Astros just let him go for next to nothing. So they realize what they have in Pressly. He's got 1 year left on his deal. $14 million ain't nothing to sneeze at, but he is still a very effective closer, and I think teams out there will value him as such. Let's see. Look Soto might sign with the Mets. I do agree. The Mets are right there for him. The leader in the clubhouse, though, according to John Heyman, is the Yankees, and only because they have the most confidence about him returning to the Bronx. We'll see if that actually happens. Tim, I know you're hoping for the Mets. I really hope you get what you want. I'm up for chaos. I love chaos when it comes to free agency. If the money that Cohen spends goes to the Mets, and if Soto goes to the Mets, I think that sets a whole chain reaction of things off, and that's what I'm here for. I want to see that happen. So we'll see if he goes to the Mets, if the Cohen camp is able to outbid the Yankees and do so by a significant margin. I think they'll get him. If they get that number, say 15 for $760, I think they probably ultimately get him. But they're still bidding, and this thing could even get higher than that. We'll see where the number ultimately goes. Heel, I think he goes to the Red Sox, but as a Rangers fan, I can dream. I would have said that Soto might have made sense, say, 2 years ago as a Rangers target in free agency, but they have so much money already committed to a lot of key spots in their lineup. Sure, they could afford a Juan Soto right now and still be underneath the collective bargaining, but they need to add some starting pitching. They need a couple of different relievers minimum, and even if you bring in Juan Soto, sure, he certainly increases your lineup potential overall over whatever you might else be able to do with that lineup, but you have more holes in that rotation and question marks and holes in that bullpen and question marks back there that a signing of Juan Soto really doesn't make sense the way the Rangers are currently set up. Would love to have seen it, but I just don't think they're in a position to do so. I will say that Chris Young seems very confident about something. He's been probably the most tight-lipped GM we've ever seen in Texas Rangers history. We never really see the chips falling where they go, and he seems to be out there in things that we didn't necessarily think he was going to be able to pull off. He started that with Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. He did that with Jacob deGrom and was able to win a World Series. Nathan Eovaldi. He seems to prioritize pitching, and more pitching. And when you think you have enough pitching, then he adds a couple more starters on top of that. So expect Chris Young to go heavy on the pitching side if you're a Rangers fan. Tim, as far as the Rangers part, I get why you're saying the nonsense there, but the Red Sox, to me, they still are very competitive in that race. They made the deal for Aroldis Chapman. They're looking at a couple of other players as well. O'Neill is now out of that lineup. They have a spot for him in that outfield. They're said to be in the market for Garrett Crochet as well. That was covered by MLB Network earlier this evening with John Paul Morosi, among others, stating that Garrett Crochet and the Red Sox seem to be a little bit of a match there because they might be willing to move off of their top prospect, Marcelo Mayer, and the White Sox have a premium on position players coming back in return for a Crochet deal. Now, 1 year of Crochet, does he really have enough longevity for the Red Sox to give up a player of Mayer's caliber? Remains to be seen, but that would certainly get the conversation rolling, downhill. It sounds like the industry is starting to believe Garrett Crochet could be moved at the winter meetings. I thought this was destined to ultimately happen closer to February. Doesn't look like that is happening at this point. Chicago Bears, are the Cubs going to do anything? I believe they're going to move one of Suzuki or Bellinger. There was a headline today that they had discussed a Jordan Montgomery for Cody Bellinger swap. I didn't see that as making a whole lot of sense for either side. Too much money on Bellinger, too much money for Montgomery, and it doesn't really solve a huge need on either side. So Montgomery, I still think, gets moved. I think the Diamondbacks ultimately eat a little bit of money on it and just try to recoup some of what they've lost. So the news that just broke on MLB trade rumors anyway, coming from Alex Spear of the Boston Globe, is that the Mariners have expressed a willingness to listen on Luis Castillo. Not a huge shock because he's probably at the least value of the starters in their rotation right now. They're not going to move Gilbert. They're not going to move Kirby. Wu has incredible value to that rotation as well. Castillo is a great starting pitcher, but the salary is already being paid to him, so he doesn't necessarily have the value of, say, guys on still their entry-level major league contracts. So his value is a little bit depressed. If you're looking to get a significant hitter into that lineup, if a team is looking for some starting pitching, maybe this is the piece that you offload to get it done. Now, would other teams prefer other pieces off of that roster, some younger starting pitching, players who aren't making as much? Absolutely. But when you're in a position like the Mariners, you got to make things work out. And Luis Castillo was a good get for them at the time. They really needed some starting pitching. Robbie Ray, etc., were expected to be at the top of that rotation. Robbie Ray ultimately has been moved on. Injuries, of course, made that thing not work out so well. But Castillo should be a nice piece for somebody if they decide to get a deal done. Let's check in on our Twitter feed just to see if anything is happening at the moment. Appreciate you guys joining us. Got about 15 of you guys with us at the moment. Be sure to say hello in the chat. Drop us a like. Really does help us out. Thank you for the like, by the way. I just saw that one. Thank you. Update our page here. This is my own little baseball list here from X. Andy Martino doubles down. Soto situation appears to be coming to a head this evening. So hopefully here in the next hour or so, we could get some headlines from Juan Soto's camp as far as where he's going to go. Now, of course, the deal is going to always be the quote-unquote pending physical type of deal. So you'll get the, okay, you're fine. He's good. That's our physical. But expect that to the pending physical comments to be coming in shortly after the deal is announced. But for $700 million and change, this deal is going to become official, whichever team he ultimately goes to. Let us know in the comments where you think he goes. Do you think he goes to your Mets, Tim? Do you think he goes somewhere else? What kind of contract do you think he goes for? I think it's very clearly over $730 million if he goes to the Mets. Yankees, I think, are probably a little bit beneath that, at least from outside reports earlier this morning. But for my money, I would still lean a little bit more towards the Yankees. I think the money is still going to be there for the Mets, but I think it's, anybody's race still. I don't think there's anybody necessarily a leader in the clubhouse, but the Yankees are said to have some quiet confidence with their in regard to their conversations with Juan Soto's camp. So numbers seem to be getting to about to the point where Boris was looking for them to get to this offseason. They're about at those numbers right now, and I'm sure he's just trying to fine-tune those offers right now and just get every last penny he can out of the deal. He'll present the offers to Juan Soto and say, these are the offers we got. And then Juan Soto will pick one of them. He'll go back to the two teams once more to verify that there's no more money in it for him. And then the deal will be official. So, I'm expecting a deal here. It's 7:52 Central Time. It is in the Dallas Metroplex area. So I'd expect this negotiation to probably go all the way up to 10 o'clock. But we are expecting to be live tonight for about 5-6 hours. So make sure you guys stay tuned. We're going to go over a ton of different headlines, not just Juan Soto, but Juan Soto is going to dominate the news the second it comes down. Got MLB Network I'm watching on the TV over here just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Got our Twitter feed up. We're not going to miss any headline. The second it happens, you're going to see it here. But let us know in the chat, where do you guys think he's going to go? Just updating it just real quick to see if anything else has come across. That was the Garrett Crochet talk that I was referring to. Chris Cotello, a Red Sox reporter, put a post out there on X anyway about the Crochet talks. Reds have been active in trade discussions over the last couple of days. They've been connected to both Naylor and Thomas from the Guardians. They've been connected to Castillo. They've been connected to several different pitchers as well. They already moved off of Jonathan India, so they got that part done. Appreciate those of you sharing our word on X. We do post when we go live on X, so tomorrow, if something big happens, we will go live and we'll post it on X whenever we do. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and you'll be notified when we do go live. All right, so let's look at the New York Yankees roster real quick, void of Juan Soto right now. Look at how much money they already have committed to several guys at the top of that roster. $40 million a season to Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole, 36, 32 to Giancarlo Stanton, and that number goes down precipitously over the next couple of years, so that's a good thing for the Yankees. They're going to have some money free up a little bit. Carlos Rodon is on the books for roughly $28 million for the next several seasons. Stroman's on the books for a couple of years. LeMahieu is a sunk cost right now as well. And then you get to the arbitration guys, Chisholm, Cortez, Schmidt, etc. But Juan Soto, there's still room for him to go in there and for the Yankees to still field a representative ball club. The question is, how much further after Juan Soto would they be willing to go? Let's go ahead and plug him in here and say Juan Soto is going to make $47 million. How does that affect their relationship with Aaron Judge? I don't think it would, but it would have to be a little bit of a sticking note there for Aaron Judge that, hey, I'm the face of this franchise, I'm the MVP on this team, and I'm going to be getting paid $7 million less than what Juan Soto is making. Something there wouldn't add up if I'm in Aaron Judge's head. So, you'd have to okay it with your MVP that you're willing to go that far to be able to retain him. At a certain point, there is a diminishing returns with whatever dollar value you sign Juan Soto to. So, for instance, say you sign Juan Soto to a $1 billion contract over 15 years. That's an insane amount of money. But all the money that you spent on Juan Soto, if you did sign him to something crazy like that, you could have easily split it up among several different players and helped your team. So by sinking $47 million a year into Juan Soto, is that the best course of action here for the Yankees, or are they best to split it up? And for my money, the way they're set up right now, they're Juan Soto. They need him in that lineup, because if they don't, that roster starts to look a little bit thin as far as the offense. Aaron Judge goes back to the team that essentially couldn't protect him in that lineup. They went out and tried to get league average players to fill in the holes. Jazz Chisholm was a nice piece at times. Giancarlo Stanton is streaky at best at this point in his career. They could use a starting pitcher, of course, but this is a team that without Juan Soto, I'm not sure they make it back to the World Series. I'm not sure they make it back to the ALCS. I'm very curious to see, say he goes to a team like the Red Sox, do the Red Sox then become a favorite to win the division over the Yankees at that point? All of these things are in play when you discuss where Juan Soto is going to sign. And still waiting to see if there's any news. We'll go ahead and just double check again because, like I said, I'm expecting this news could happen now, could happen 5 minutes from now, could happen 2 hours from now. But here's got a few of us here at the Upside that are keeping track of all of those things for you guys to make sure you guys don't miss out on anything that happens as it happens. So let's look at the New York Mets next. What does their payroll look like if they bring in Juan Soto? As it loads here. Okay. Second in the NL MVP voting was Francisco Lindor at 34. This would clearly be a step up as far as payroll for the New York Mets with $47 million annually going to Juan Soto. That would be an incredible number. Marte's number is going to be coming off the books next year, so that'll be good for them. He probably takes over at the spot there for Marte right now. Maybe they can find a team to take on the Marte money or take him off of the roster, clear the roster spot. I would expect them to still look to add another starting pitcher. They're not out of the Sasaki sweepstakes, even though it's been reported out there that Sasaki's already made up his mind and he wants to go to the Dodgers. I would argue that the Padres, Rangers, Cubs, Mets, Mariners would all say something different when it comes to Sasaki because he hasn't signed anywhere yet. He hasn't even been posted. Now, it has been reported that he will be posted here at the meetings, and he will sign sometime after the new year. He'll have 45 days to agree to terms and all those kinds of things, and they want to sign him after the new year because of the money they've already got tied up in international free agents. But he would take the majority or all of that international pool money, and that's basically your one get in international free agency if you do bring him in. But the Mets are going to need some starting pitching here. They already added Frankie Montas. They brought in Clay Holmes, who's going to be primarily a starting pitcher for them. If it doesn't work, then he could be a very expensive eighth-inning guy in front of Edwin Diaz. So we'll see what happens there. But you look at the payroll structure here, they could fit into Juan Soto even if they didn't have Steve Cohen. I think Cohen's kind of the limitless option here for the Mets, is that they just are going to print money when it comes to Steve Cohen. He wants to see this team be a winner. And to say that it's not been working so far, I think would be a mistake, because you saw the ability for them to be able to take on money in the Scherzer and Verlander deals allowed them to get some premium prospects out of the Rangers and Astros organizations. Arguably the last best prospects out of that Astros farm system. Then the Rangers, of course, they parted with a very good young prospect anyway, and Luis Angel Acuna, who is the brother, of course, of your division rival Atlanta Braves, Ronald Acuna. Maybe down the road, if Acuna becomes available, now you can become a more attractive piece for him to go there. So all, things that you have to consider when you're going down the line here for the Mets is that they did all of that in a down year when they were expecting to win. They realized where they were, they flipped the switch, turned it around, and then this past season they were not expected to win very much at all. They were going to be retooling a little bit and made it to the NLCS, which was a great run for them. Dodgers, of course, win the series. They're still in the running here for Soto. We'll see what happens. But the Mets are very well set up for the future, and they've got money to burn. So we'll see who ultimately wins the sweepstakes for Juan Soto. We'll update our page here, MLB Trade Rumors. We touched a little bit on the Hall of Fame announcement tonight. Dick Allen and Dave Parker. The two bits of news tonight, anyway, is that they've been elected to the Hall of Fame. A committee that had 8 members on that ballot, anyway, decided to vote those two players in. Long overdue for both of them. Dick Allen will be inducted posthumously. Dave Parker will be able to be there in attendance. And, it's a good get for them, so we shall see. Welcome back, Nando. John Heyman got like 5. Okay. I don't know about that. I'm sure that they've got a whole bunch of reporters in there. With the winter meetings being underway, I'm sure the baseball world is just getting together and enjoying being able to talk about baseball, and everybody basically is competing competing to win a postseason series, competing to win the World Series right now. Even teams like the A's and Angels are spending money at a time when they're not expected to. A good surprise there is that it's going to drive up all the values of these free agent deals for a number of other players. A guy like Nathaniel Lowe, who was coming into this offseason looking for probably $25 million at the high end, maybe 3 years, might actually be able to get that and then some, because guys who I would view as inferior pitchers to the track record and resume of a guy like Nathan Eovaldi, they ultimately got the money I was expecting a Nathan Eovaldi type pitcher to get. Eovaldi's a much more accomplished pitcher, still very productive, and he's got a pretty good market right now. Rangers and Braves seem to be very intent on bringing him in. Both of those two teams are trying to keep that number as depressed as much as they possibly can. But teams like the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Orioles all have interest in Nathan Eovaldi as well. Chicago Cubs have been mentioned as a fit there. Go ahead and update our page here. Just trying to keep as up-to-date information as we can. We'll get into some trades here shortly. Rule 5 draft will be coming up here in a couple of days. We'll have the draft lottery coming up Tuesday evening, I believe. Let's look at this, the Mariners possibly dealing a Luis Castillo. Where do you guys think he could go? Let's look at his numbers here. We'll go ahead and look at Ryan Presley as well. Update our page. Refresh it again, shall we? Okay, now let's see if it loads. So JG, I know you asked about Ryan Presley. Let's go ahead and dig in on his. Let's see here. Presley's value. Don't see him on this first page. Let me pull up the majors only. Trim this list a little bit. Okay, so they have his value at negative 1.5. I'm not necessarily buying that. I would say his value is a little bit higher. Understandably, he's a little bit older, coming off of a somewhat down year, but that was with a more chaotic season for him when he was the long-standing closer on a very successful playoff caliber team. Negative 1.5 is a little low for me, but a team like a Phillies or Orioles or pretty much anybody who needs a closer out there would be a good get for Brian Presley. I would say the Texas Rangers, but I have zero confidence that they would deal him within the division. Fly Guy, welcome in. Castillo will go to Philly for Bohm. That would make more sense to me. So let's go ahead and dig into that one. Since the two teams have already talked about the possibility of Alec Bohm going the other way. Let's pull up the Mariners first. Starting pitcher. And we're going to send him to Philadelphia. So there's Castillo. 5.5. Phillies. I didn't see him on that first page either, so let's look at the third base position. Bohm, Mariners. Okay. Now, Luis Castillo, 4 years left on his deal, 93.33 million left. Average field value that they have for him is around 98. That tells you that there's so much money kind of on his deal already that even though it's a set cost, it's lowering his value overall because you're paying him basically what he's worth on the field, which isn't a bad thing. It means basically it's not a bad contract. He's still a very good starting pitcher. He's 32 years old. So whereas all these other starting pitchers at the top of the market are going to get like $30+ million, when we're talking about Burns, I think Fried is going to get really close. I think Eovaldi's going to be around that 25 number. You're going to be getting a guy for a little under 25 at a set cost. You already know what you're getting there. And so say the Mariners eat, say, I don't know, 20 million of that deal. Could be a straight up deal, 1-for-1. Castillo for Bohm. There it goes. So there you go. Validate trade. Fair trade. Voila. You think the Cubs would be a good get for Bellinger? I think that would be a pretty good deal as well. Cubs have been connected with the Mariners for years with Bellinger. Bellinger's been a good fit for them. Sean, what's next for the Cubs? Will they sign or trade for a bat for their lineup? I think they would prefer to trade one first to see what kind of money they're going to be able to save to acquire a hitter that they would like in free agency. I think there's a few bats that they would like to have in that lineup in this free agent class, but they need to free up some money to be able to do so. The update on the Juan Soto deal right now. John Heyman discussing it on MLB Network. The offers have reached over $700 million. That was reported early this morning anyway, that they were over 710 for both of the New York teams, with one of the teams getting over $730 million. Let's go ahead and update our X feed here. See if anything is happening right now. Doesn't look like it. Like I said, we'll be live for quite a bit tonight, so make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe once that news becomes official. We will probably take a quick little break, restart our video with the correct information in the header. Let everybody know out there who he is going to. Let's go ahead and look at a third option for the Juan Soto news. The Red Sox right now are considered, I would say by media reports, to be the third place finisher right now. with roughly 46, 47, what would that look like on this Red Sox roster? They have so much flexibility right now. Giolito, of course, didn't really work out so far, but the money for Yoshida they're looking to move off of. Story is kind of a sunk cost at this point, but you stuck with it for 3 years. Chapman's only for 1 year. Liam Hendricks is still there, of course, but we'll see what he gives them next year. They have a lot of veterans in that bullpen right now. But they have the financial flexibility to really add a starting pitcher and to add a bat like Juan Soto. So where would he fit in the lineup? For me, I'd probably still put him in there at the number 2 spot. I'd put Devers at 3 just to kind of give myself the Aaron Judge, Juan Soto type of lineup that the Yankees had last year. And then I'd try to form my lineup around that. Duran is my leadoff hitter. And then I'd see if I could add another corner outfielder or a impact bat, first base type if you move off of Casas. Tristan Casas has been mentioned as a trade candidate quite a bit this offseason. Say the Texas Rangers get in there for a Pete Alonso or for a Yandy Diaz or Christian Walker, whatever first baseman they would like. Nathaniel Lowe, I think, would be a great fit into that Boston Red Sox lineup at first base if he became available. Entering this offseason, I didn't think it was overly likely that the Rangers would move off of Nathaniel Lowe. I'm beginning to see the merits of it, and I'm sure the front office is well ahead of this for me. But if they moved on from Nathaniel Lowe, the Rangers would open up roughly $11 million in salary that they could use to spend on a starting pitcher. They could bring in a first baseman, an upgrade over Nathaniel Lowe if they decided to go that route. But to trade him to Boston, I think would be a great get for Boston. I think he'd be far better in that ballpark than he has been in Texas. Power numbers took a little bit of a dip, but I think Boston would be just what the doctor ordered for him, or New York if they decide to add a first baseman like Nathaniel Lowe. So going somewhere in the NL East, in the AL East anyway, I think he'd be a great option for either of those teams via trade. Goldschmidt's out there as far as a first base target. Maybe you go after him to kind of to round out your lineup if you're Boston. But looking at how Juan Soto would fit, you can clearly see how the money is certainly there for the Red Sox. Again, the leaders in the clubhouse right now, according to some reports out there, however slight the lead might be, the New York Yankees and New York Mets are the two teams that clearly have offers over $710 million. But it'll still be curious to see where he goes. Let's see here. Sean, what other starter will the Cubs get for the rotation, and does Soto make his decision tonight? It has been reported by several different reporters now that the decision is expected for Juan Soto this evening. So we'll see where he ultimately goes. I'm sure MLB Network will break back into live coverage once that happens. So that's why I've got it on the screen on the side here. I've got the Twitter feed open as well, X, whatever you want to call it. Jordan, here we go again on the Ohtani playing anniversary too. Okay. If you guys are not understanding what Jordan's referring to, it was John Paul Morosi that said, "Oh yeah, Soto's on his way, or Ohtani's on his way to Toronto to get a physical and sign the deal, all that kind of thing." Those reports were false. Where he was getting his information was leading John Paul Morosi down a wild goose chase. So, a couple of reporters the last couple of years, some of the most respected in the business, John Heyman, John Paul Morosi, are not above making a mistake every now and again. So, we shall see. There's the two new Hall of Famers, Dick Allen and Dave Parker. As for your first question there, Sean, what other starter will the Cubs get? I think it's going to be more of a B or C level starting pitcher to their rotation. I don't think they're going to be at the top of the free agent class for a Burns or a Fried. I don't think they're going to trade for a Crochet or anything like that. I do think they could get a guy like Eovaldi, would probably be the cream of the crop if they could. But I think you're probably looking more on the lower end of the starting pitchers that might be available. The best one they might be able to get is Jack Flaherty. MLB Trade Rumors and Jim Bowden, I believe they had a contract for him around 3 years at $55 million. I think if the Cubs went 3 at $65, they could easily get that. Maybe 3 at $75, but could be a nice get for them to land Flaherty out there in Chicago. Haven't heard any rumors, but I'm saying that might be your best option, hopeful pie in the sky scenario. Just making sure nothing else was happening. I got my alerts on my phone for you guys. So if you guys hear a little buzz every now and again, that's my alerts from X. Just let me know if anything does happen. Rangers reporter Jeff Wilson saying he's trying to have some fun at the winter meetings. With Roki Sasaki expected to be posted. He is now a part of DLLS Rangers. If you're a local Texas Rangers fan, check them out. They're pretty cool to listen to. Great podcast, all that kind of a thing. But the Rangers do believe they have a chance to sign Roki Sasaki, and this is kind of what Rangers fans are really hoping for. A low-cost, high-impact signing with Roki Sasaki could be exactly what the doctor ordered. If you guys remember all those years ago when Ohtani first came over, the Rangers were the second-place finisher for Shohei Ohtani. He ultimately decided to go to the Angels. Not a huge shock. He wanted to be on the West Coast. But Sasaki also wants to go to the West Coast. It sounds like the Dodgers are far and away their favorite, are the favorite for him. But Sasaki, the Rangers are still right there. The Padres are right there as the 2 and 3 there as well. Let's see here. Where does Scherzer or Verlander end up? We'll answer that part of your question first. Scherzer, I think he goes anywhere that has a rotation spot for him that's going to be competing for a World Series. So a team that needs to shake things up like the Phillies, that needs to add a starting pitcher if they deal Ranger Suarez, immediately plugs in Max Scherzer. Dodgers make a lot of sense as their number 5 if they miss on Sasaki and Kershaw decides to go away and Buehler decides not to come back. I think he could go back to the Dodgers. If the Mets are unable to bring in Burns or Fried or any of the other top options out there, maybe they revisit the possibility of a Max Scherzer on a 1-year deal. As far as Verlander, Scherzer's a far better pitcher at this point. Higher effectiveness. Injuries are, of course, a big risk. Home runs have been a problem for Scherzer. I'm not saying he's the Scherzer of Cy Young ilk, but I am saying he's far better than what Verlander has been able to do. He just looked absolutely washed. Look at the New York Jets, at what Aaron Rodgers has been this year. That's what Justin Verlander just put up with the Houston Astros. Now, of course, it's still Justin Verlander, a team that might want to salvage their offseason and say, hey, look, we still got Justin Verlander. We still come out ahead. They're just doing it for headlines at this point, which is sad to say. I've never really been a huge Justin Verlander fan. I've really appreciated the performance on the field, don't get me wrong. But there's other starting pitchers to me that during that same period of time were better than him in that given season. Kershaw at his peak was better than Justin Verlander. Scherzer at his peak was better than Justin Verlander. There's so many guys that fit that bill that Verlander, while still very consistent over those years, he was never really that pitcher for me. There were other pitchers that always were a little bit better. Doesn't mean I don't value the production that he had, but I think the national media overblew his impact overall. Now, sure, he had a huge impact when he came to the Houston Astros. The ability to kind of help mentor Garrett Cole to become the pitcher that he is today really did kind of further his career. And now Garrett Cole is a better pitcher because of Justin Verlander. But for me, I think the Astros, if they want to salvage their offseason for their fan base and say, hey, we got Justin Verlander back, guys. One more run with our core that we have, or one last hurrah. That's just saving face in the headlines, and it's not really as big of an impact as, say, signing him 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's not the same player. He's washed. He's Aaron Rodgers of Major League Baseball at this point. So go ahead and at me, at X anyway, if you guys are wondering. At UpsideSN on Twitter, or X anyway, is where we post our videos out there as well. So that's kind of our Twitter handle or X handle, at UpsideSN. JG, could Cohen go up to $800 million? I don't think it's out of the range of possibility here. Cohen could go that high. I wouldn't say that it's a complete no. Ken Rosenthal about a couple weeks ago said that the possibility of a 15-year, $750 million deal is not out of the realm of possibility. So for, say, the Yankees right now are believed to be over $710 million at minimum, could even be over $730 at this point. If Soto's preferred destination is to go back to New York, if all things are equal, the Mets are going to have to outbid the Yankees to be able to get him. Not by $5 million, not by $10 million, but by like $30 million, I would believe, if he really wants to go back to New York. If it's truly just who gives me the best offer, then hey, the Yankees really shouldn't be competing at that level anyway. I mean, we're talking about a player, while he was great, that you could easily flip around some pieces and be better in the long-term future of your organization. Take a step back next year because obviously Soto is so important to that team. But being able to reinvest that money elsewhere might be best for them long-term. But Soto, for me, if they don't bring him in, that really hurts their chances to get back to the World Series or even the ALCS next year. Cohen, I do think, has the ability to go up to 800 if it's required. JG, I want Christian Walker. If the Astros don't sign Bregman, I think they should honestly do both. I don't think they're going to. I think Walker is far more gettable. They don't want to go over 5 years for any free agent. It was a surprise that they offered 6 for 156, but how real was that offer really? I mean, we just looked at Willie Adames get 7 for 182. I told you guys we'd get into that deal here in just a moment earlier, but we will. Dodgers signed Michael Conforto. Ooh, let's see. Is this our first signing of the winter meetings? It is. Mark Feinsand. Dodgers have agreed to a deal with Michael Conforto. Interesting move. I think this gives them a decent addition to their outfield. I don't think this finishes their outfield alignment, though. I think they're still going to try to bring in Teoscar Hernandez. They're said to be really interested in bringing him back. Other corner outfielders they've also had some interest in, but Michael Conforto goes to the Dodgers here. We'll see what the numbers turn out to be. Good get, though, for LA as they continue their torrid spending. And they're going to continue to add. Sasaki, also on the screen, could ultimately go there as their number 5 starter. And boy, oh boy, wouldn't it be incredible if they were able to get the next ace of that LA Dodgers staff to be their number 5 guy and have 4 aces already in front of him. Just incredible the way the Dodgers have been able to turn things around from where they were the season before they signed Shohei. I don't think this was real, just a smokescreen to make fans happy. Oh, I think you're referring to the Bregman thing. I agree. I don't think Conforto's the player that he was at his peak with the New York Mets. To me, he's an okay player at this point. If he's getting more than, say, 10 to 15, I think that's a mistake. Honestly, I would prefer less than 10, but, market sometimes drives up the price a little bit. Maybe the Dodgers are just guaranteeing that they get a corner outfielder with some impact, and maybe they see something in a swing. The LA Dodgers have been fantastic at turning around pitchers with very similar backgrounds to Michael Conforto, who has that same profile as a hitter. Maybe they'll do something again here. They've had some success with hitters doing that as well. They did so with Chris Taylor. They did so with Jason Hayward for a year. Maybe Conforto's that next reclamation project that turns into their best form of themselves with the Dodgers. We'll see if that ultimately happens. We'll update our page here and see if they have any terms on the deal. Rosenthal confirms that the Conforto deal is done and that they are still in on Teoscar. Not a huge surprise. As you watch Jason Robertson score a goal on my feed there. Yes, I'm a Stars fan. So Conforto fits the left-handed platoon of that deal. I wonder if the Dodgers try to get off of the Chris Taylor money somehow. Maybe they try to bring back Bellinger. Send out Taylor in return. Maybe a couple of prospects to make the money work. I think Bellinger has a lot more value than a Chris Taylor, of course, but maybe the Dodgers just want to offload the money in Taylor and say, hey, you don't have to eat the money on it. Let's go Stars. Exactly, JG. Got a huge Dallas Mavericks game coming up on Tuesday in the NBA Cup. I know some of you guys don't care about the NBA Cup, but it's been pretty good watching it from a regular season standpoint. Since when do we care about basketball before Christmas? And I'm going to say this is probably going to be one of the top 5-6 games of the year before we get to the playoffs, happening before Christmas. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to be glued to the TV, and yes, I'll still be here watching the winter meetings with you guys, and we'll still do our live that evening. But my eyes will be glued on that game as well on Tuesday night. It's going to be incredible. More headlines of Conforto going to the Dodgers. Still no numbers being tossed around here. I'd imagine it's a very short-term deal, maybe a 1 or 2 year deal. Still no other information here. Let's flip over to MLB Trade Rumors, see if they have any information on numbers. They do not. Okay, so those of you joining us, just to kind of catch you guys up on the Juan Soto saga, it is expected that he will agree to a deal tonight with one of the New York Yankees, the New York Mets, the Boston Red Sox, and to some extent the Toronto Blue Jays and Los Angeles Dodgers. Do I think Conforto is completely prohibiting them from getting a Juan Soto? I don't. I don't think Teoscar Hernandez would either. I think if Shohei Ohtani says, hey, I deferred all this money, I expect you to go out there and sign Juan Soto if he says he wants to be here. And if Juan Soto says, hey, I want to be there, I think the Dodgers would get it done. But I wouldn't discount them entirely. With that being said, I would still put their chances at being able to sign Juan Soto at a little less than 1% at this point. And it's only because if those two players decided we want to play together and really form a dynasty with this LA Dodgers club, that's the only way I think it gets done. Right now, I think the Dodgers front office would prefer to go elsewhere with their finances right now. Let's check in on X one more time just to see if they have any news yet. One-year deal. Ken Rosenthal has it here in the $17 million range. He earned $18 million last year. Good get here for the Dodgers. $17 million, though. That's a little rich if I'm the Dodgers. I would have expected a little bit less. But maybe they identified something in Conforto that said this is a guy that would be a difference maker for us. Maybe that's what it turns out to be. But for my money, I would rather have gone in a different direction for $17 million. I mean, for me, you look at the corner outfield market, but beyond Juan Soto. You got Santander out there. O'Neill just signed for roughly $17-ish million with the Orioles. 3 years, 49, I think was the number that he signed. Teoscar Hernandez is out there. I'm very curious to see, where they go with a $17 million figure here. Is this an indication that he's going to be playing every day for them? Is this an indication that they're going to be, going a little bit cheaper on Teoscar Hernandez? Sure, they're still in it, but they might pull back a little bit as far as having a absolute need for Teoscar. I think if the Yankees get Juan Soto, I think Teoscar Hernandez probably ends up with the Red Sox at that point. Santander probably ends up with the Mets if I had to guess. But Conforto, $17 million seems a little rich for my blood. I would have gone a different direction. Even another corner outfield piece that I wanted to get to here is Jurickson Profar. I think he would have been a better get at a lower average annual value. I think Profar's probably going to get it 3 for probably 15-ish million. I would rather have gone for Jurickson Profar than Michael Conforto. Profar, you could move all over, all 3 outfield spots, all 4 infield spots. He's had position, or he's played all 4 of those spots before, and they love to have players like this on their roster. So I'm a little bit surprised they didn't try to steal from a division rival like the Padres, who are in a better position to compete with them next year, rather than Michael Conforto. If he had gone back to the Giants, not really that big of a threat. I mean, the Giants, they get Willy Adames, but they're still several pieces away from competing with the Dodgers. Sean, Andy Martino reporting Juan Soto decision will come tonight. Yes, that's kind of what we started our show with, is that Mike Puma and Andy Martino, John Heyman, all think this is coming to a head this evening. Let's go ahead and refresh our feed here just to see if anything else is happening at the moment. Yeah, it is a little bit surprising that they're going $17 million on Conforto here. No other news happening there. Let us know in the comment section. What do you guys think of the deal with Conforto going to the Dodgers? Let's go ahead and say A, B, C if you think A, it was a great trade. B, if it was just all right. And C, if it's just, well, they got a guy. D, if you think they never thought they should have made the deal. For me, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably a C. I think they could have done a number of different things that would help them just as much. So unless there's something specific to Conforto that they see that they can maximize with that Dodgers, hitting instruction, that would be where I would go with that signing. I would say that, an A would be getting him for like $8-9 million. A B would be 12, 13. 17 is a little rich, and he better produce. That's all I'm going to say for $17 million. Of course, it's going to be a one-year deal, free agency. If he doesn't work out this year, you release him into free agency. But you could have had Grichuk, like you mentioned, JG. But to me, Grichuk is more of a fourth outfielder at this point. I wouldn't say Grichuk is on the same level. I'd say they're close, but I still would prefer Conforto over Grichuk. I'll put it this way, every MLB team has had their chance to sign Randal Grichuk over the last 2 or 3 years at multiple different points, and every single one of them has passed at different times. Conforto is still getting $17 million here from what is believed to be the behemoth in Major League Baseball in the LA Dodgers. He got $18 million from the Giants the year before. So, we'll see. Maybe the Dodgers see something I don't, but for $17 million, hey, it's their money. I would have spent it differently. Nightingale having a little bit of fun with us. Get their outfielder. No, not Juan Soto. Got the MLB Network on, watching that one. Making sure nothing happens. They are not live at the moment, but I imagine they will the second Juan Soto news happens. It is only 8:32 here Central Time. We will be live for quite a while tonight and tomorrow. Different times of both. We'll probably have a morning update as far as what's happened overnight. Usually the first night of the winter meetings, there isn't too much. It's more groundwork, meeting people, shaking hands, kissing babies, all that kind of thing. And then you get really down to the business of baseball on Monday. You get some headlines usually by noon. 1 o'clock is usually when you start seeing a few deals roll in. And then hopefully we'll have an active evening Monday night. I'm hoping Juan Soto news happens tonight. That way the market can really get going the afternoon tomorrow. I would expect that corner outfield market specifically, to really take off. Bregman's market should really take off as well at that same time, because he's probably the next position player on the market that teams are going to pivot to. The Yankees specifically could look at him, the Mets as well. Red Sox would be a great fit. Blue Jays are going to spend the money on somebody, and they need a third baseman or shortstop, depending on what their future looks like with Bo Bichette if things don't work out. They got a ton of money to spend, and they're going to spend it on somebody. It's just a matter of where they decide to go. Maybe they go out and try to get him before Juan Soto signs, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Juan Soto does sign tonight, and then Bregman's numbers really take off tomorrow. But you look at what the Giants did with Willy Adames, 7 for 182. Obviously Bregman is a higher ceiling player. I'd say Adames has performed a little bit better over the years. But Bregman has all that playoff potential, all that playoff experience, and I think that's invaluable. I think he's going to do much better in the free agent market. I would say probably in the 200 to 225 range. 7 for 225 sounds about where the market could get for Bregman, maybe even higher, depending on how the Juan Soto market ends up falling out. But he's going to do very well in free agency. I told you guys we would dig into a little bit of that Willy Adames contract. 7 for 182. I want to compare this a little bit to the Marcus Semien deal with the Texas Rangers, 7 for 175. Very similar deals. Adames gets $1 million more. He's going to play shortstop for the Giants. This tells me the Giants are basically done with the idea of having Luciano be their long-term shortstop. They needed somebody to come in there and be a power bat for them. Adames gives them that. However, they still need to do more work in that lineup. Their work is still very much lacking. I would expect them to add at least a couple more or at least one starting pitcher and a couple more everyday players to that lineup. Buster Posey, though, gets something done that Farhan Zaidi never could. He gets his guy. And so maybe he didn't want to spend at the level of Juan Soto, which I think they absolutely should be. But if they didn't think they were going to be there, maybe Buster Posey said, hey, I'm not even going to waste my time. I'm just going to go straight to Willie Adames. If that's the case, he executed his plan, which is a very good way to operate, and starts to change the culture there with the San Francisco Giants. JG, I think Adames priced the Astros out of Bregman. I would rather have Walker and Jorge Polanco. I think Polanco would be a very good get for the Astros, kind of give them a major league level player at that third base spot. Walker, I think, would be a great get for them as well. Say in the 4 years, $80 million range, $85 million would make some sense as well. Let's go ahead and update our page to see if anything else is happening at the moment. Doesn't look like it. We'll be live for a little bit longer here. Probably take a quick break and then wait for the Soto news to hit, and then we'll be back live. Got to save the voice for all these lives I'm going to be doing with you guys. So appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. If the news does break tonight, we will immediately go live. Make a short little 15-second clip to let you guys know, hey, we're going live and where he signed. And then we'll break down the deal, the numbers, the fallout, what's happening next, where do these teams pivot, what does the lineup look like, what does the finances look like for these teams that are, pivoting to Bregman, all these other guys that are out there, what does the trade market do now that Juan Soto would be off the board. We will get into every single bit of that here this evening once Juan Soto does agree. Sherman on the Conforto deal. What attracted the Dodgers to Conforto? Perhaps at home, at the tough offense in Oracle, 3 homers, 216 on the road, 17 homers, and 253 batting average. Maybe getting away from Oracle is what their thought process is there, that he's actually a little bit better than what he had shown based on his splits, home and road splits there. I'm not necessarily buying it. I still think Conforto is nowhere near the level of player we expected when he was with the New York Mets. Never really got back to that same level of health. Injuries took their toll, and maybe, like I said, the Dodgers see something there, but we'll see where that deal ultimately ends up. Bruce, welcome in. Can you say where Juan Soto signed? Not yet. The expectation is that he will agree tonight. The multiple sources out there, Mike Puma, John Heyman, Andy Martino, several industry sources expect the deal to be announced tonight where he goes. Both the New York Mets and the New York Yankees over $710 million in their bids for him. Mets are believed to be over $730 million. Now the Red Sox are seen as now a third place team in that, with the Blue Jays and Dodgers taking a little bit of a step back in the bidding for him. Now, by no means is this a Dodgers or Yankees or Mets clearly out in front for Juan Soto. This is more of by a nose kind of a thing. You feel the Rangers will get him? Well, I mean, they surprised us all before. How many of you guys had them signing Marcus Semien and Corey Seager and Jacob deGrom and John Gray and all the other guys that they've been able to sign, and Nathan Eovaldi? I remember Matt Vasgersian a couple of years ago on Hot Stove on MLB Network. He kept throwing the Rangers under the bus because they would be the Texas Rangers are always going to sign their guy, but they never do. Well, up until the Seager and Semien signings, they always missed out, and even after they signed him, Vasgersian still said the same thing. But they ultimately got the deGrom deal done. So I was very happy to see Vasgersian have to eat some crow after the words he said about my Rangers anyway. And yes, Rangers are my favorite team. I don't really hide that. You feel whoever signs him will spend too much money? I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point, but there's so much money in it for him. The teams that are really at the top of the market for him could be able to field a competitive team while still bringing in Juan Soto. It's not like the Miami Marlins signing Giancarlo Stanton to that ridiculous deal, or for the Rockies to sign Nolan Arenado only to flip him and eat half of that deal, and then spend the money they eat on that they saved on the Nolan Arenado deal on Chris Bryant. They're not one of those small market clubs that has those types of issues. Dodgers have money to burn. Red Sox have money to burn. Yankees have money to burn. Mets certainly have money to burn. Blue Jays have money to burn. All these teams have so much money out there that the Juan Soto deal, they're going to overspend for him, absolutely, but they're going to be able to tolerate it. Paul, your Giants finally got something done. Willy Adames, 7 for 182. Really good signing for you. Good start to your winter meetings. And hopefully they are able to add a starting pitcher. They're still in there for Corbin Burns. And I would expect them to add at least one more hitter to that lineup. I agree he would be surrounded by many stars on top team. Absolutely he would. We're talking about with the Yankees, he would go right in front of Aaron Judge. With the Mets, the second place runner, or the runner-up in the MVP race was Francisco Lindor. He would easily fit in front of him. If he goes to the Red Sox, he endeavors. If he goes to the Blue Jays, you got Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and him. If he goes to the Dodgers, then we're talking about Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, and Soto. Just incredible depth in those lineups. Even if they bring in Soto, they're still going to have a good team around them. I do agree, Paul. It was a great move. Posey, we trust, yeah. For the past 5 years, we've seen what the Farhan Zaidi, experiment really was. More platoons, missing out on top-flight free agents. They really should have been able to sign Bryce Harper. They should have been able to get Manny Machado. They failed. They should have been able to get, Xander Bogaerts. They failed. Carlos Correa. They failed. And they finally get the guy they're shooting for in free agency. Now, I think that the better target for them would have been Juan Soto, but Posey was never really in it for Juan Soto. He locks up his shortstop position with Willy Adames. Maybe he believes going up the middle, locking up your center, or your center field, your shortstop, your pitching, and your catcher is the best way to go. That's generally been the way teams have been built up over the years. We saw that with the Texas Rangers. They went with middle infield guys to kind of build up through the middle. Defensive center fielder and Leody Taveras was already in-house. And then they built up their pitching with Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi. They ultimately won a World Series. Maybe that's the thought process here for the Giants, is that by bringing in Willy Adames, not only does he help your lineup, power, all those kinds of things, but he impacts your defense and your winning better than Juan Soto would, because Juan Soto is going to be a corner outfielder for you at best. He's not going to be playing center field, stopping, being a 20-plus run-saving guy out there for you. But maybe they believe Willy Adames would be a better fit for them both offensively and defensively, and then they still have money to go out there and add another big piece to that roster. Bruce, I feel the Yankees will probably sign Burns, or maybe the Rangers. I would have really liked to see the Rangers go after Corbin Burns. In fact, I think that the plan originally was for them to go after Corbin Burns a couple of years ago. But with the signing of deGrom, I think that decreased the need for him. They have so much money committed now to deGrom. I don't think it eliminates the possibility that they bring him in. But say Eovaldi goes for 3 at $75 million. If the Rangers are willing to go to $25 million for Eovaldi, Burns is probably going to go for 31, 32. $6 million is a lot as far as adding more additional value, but we're talking about a pitcher who's going to be in your rotation for 6-7 years, whereas Eovaldi is only going to be in there 3 years. You hope the injuries don't really start to catch up and you have a decline in performance as he ages. Burns, of course, is a little bit younger, and hopefully you'd expect a little bit longer performance out of him because of that. But we'll see. Cobra, Padres only focused on Sasaki now. I think the Rangers, Padres, and Dodgers are all very much viable options for Sasaki. Favorite still has to be the Dodgers, but I would put the Padres, Rangers, and to some extent the Cubs in that conversation. That makes sense about the Giants. Hadn't considered that at all. Yeah, absolutely. Glad I could help you. We like covering baseball, all different teams. We covered even the Rockies, even though they've been terrible the last, decade plus at this point. We've covered them quite a bit, but we cover all the teams in Major League Baseball, and we'll see, how the next year turns out. But winter meetings, off-season baseball, trades, signings, non-tenders, those are all more fascinating to me in the off-season of baseball than sometimes even the games can be. That's why I really like to cover Major League Baseball from a standpoint of not a highlight show, but more of a, hey, trade possibilities, where free agents are going to sign, those kinds of things. Those are more entertaining to me. You have your sports centers and that kind of thing if you want highlights. I'm not here for that. I'm here to see what makes the team a little bit better. What trades could we see? Things that impact rosters down the road. Still have money for Burns and maybe even Paul Goldschmidt. Those are the two I'm hearing most notably with the Giants, is that they could look to Goldschmidt to kind of rebuild on a one-year deal, a low-cost veteran presence at first base that they could then turn around in free agency next year and re-sign him if he rebuilds his value, or just immediately reinvest that money elsewhere. Arenado has been mentioned as a fit out there for the Dodgers. He's been mentioned with the Giants, with the Astros, the Cubs, I'm missing several teams out there, but there's so many teams that are in the Arenado market. Arenado did post out there that he liked the song, what was it, from Kendrick Lamar about Dodger Blue, I think it was. But anyway, until Bryce Etheridge is ready to take over, yeah. I mean, he's not ready yet, but having Goldschmidt there would be a good fit for them. You feel like Soto will be making a big mistake if he stays with the Yankees. They are a disgusting team, in my opinion. I don't think they're a disgusting team, but they've really gone power slug heavy over the last 5 years or so, no matter what Brian Cashman would have you believe. They don't really value speed the way other teams do. You look at the way the Royals had some success this year is because they went back to what worked for them. Speed, contact, pitching, defense. You do that, you win games. And the Royals, I expect to be better. They've already spent this offseason, and they're going to continue to spend. Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you joining us once again. Nothing quite yet. We've seen Michael Conforto agree to a deal, 1 year, $17 million. That's our first official deal of the winter meetings. Juan Soto is expected to make his decision tonight, so for those of you just joining us, we'll recap it one more time. The 5 teams that are in there: Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Dodgers. To some extent, some industry experts believe the Blue Jays and Dodgers have taken a little bit of a step back in that race for him. Meanwhile, the Yankees and Mets both have confirmed offers over $710 million out to Juan Soto. 15-year range is what the expectation is there. Incredible numbers there for him. Red Sox are seen as kind of a very close third place there, but no team is considered necessarily a favorite. Yankees are showing some quiet confidence in their ability to retain Juan Soto. That coming from John Heyman when he was speaking to fellow reporters at the hotel. He did not actually report that on his page or at the on MLB Network, but he has been telling other reporters at the hotel that he's observed the Yankees demonstrating some confidence about their ability to sign Juan Soto, whereas he hasn't got that same feeling from Mets, Red Sox, Blue Jays, or Dodgers officials. Bruce, I feel like the Rangers, Dodgers, Mets, and Boston are all classy and would do better for Soto, as he seems classy too. Soto really likes to be kind of an intimidating guy at the plate, but he also likes to be very deliberate. High character guy, I would agree there. I really like the way he plays as far as he dominates the way things are handled on the field. He demonstrates control of the at-bat. He doesn't let the pitcher control his at-bats. He takes his big stride on a ball. He watches that ball closely all the way in. He takes one in the arm if he has to. He really demonstrates some real control and dominance out there in that batter's box. And he's kind of done the same thing here with his free agency. He's been very, very deliberate, taking his time, visiting all the teams, meeting all the staff, seeing how he would fit, meeting the other players on those rosters, seeing how he would fit in those organizations, what life would be like if he signed with these teams. Then fielded a whole bunch of offers from around Major League Baseball, not just the 2 or 3 favorites. Then let a round of bidding get underway and multiple offers from several teams, even competing with their own offers. Now he's still got the biggest markets in town. He was the third runner-up on the American League side for the MVP. He could not have had a better breakthrough season to go into free agency than he just did, and he's so young. That's why he's going to get clearly over $700 million. But Rangers, I do believe, are a classy organization. The others that you mentioned there as well. But baseball in general has run really well these days. Cobra, Crochet, a Yankee. There have been connections there. Red Sox have been connected to him today, as have the Reds and the Cubs as well. Bruce, I mean, if the team is discussing, they just go around throwing money around and aren't well managed from a GM point, and I feel their fans are terrible too. Okay, I get what you're trying to say there. I mean, at a certain point, like, you have to throw money at some players if you struggle to be able to develop your own players, then you have to go the free agency route. I mean, look at the Texas Rangers. They had terrible luck, as far as injuries, poor performance in the minor leagues for decades with their own pitchers, that they ultimately went the free agency route. John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Nathan Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom, all these other guys. Their best free agent their best homegrown guy was what? Martin Perez? He was good for a period of time, but he left and came back and was better than he had been with the Rangers during his tenure. Derek Holland, he was a good pitcher, not great. Matt Harrison was brought over in the Mark Teixeira trade, but most of the acquisitions the Rangers have brought in on the pitching side have not been their own homegrown guys, and that's because they haven't really had much success developing those guys, so you have to go out there and spend at a certain point, and I don't fault the organizations out there who do so. They realize they have faults in their team, and they go out there and try to solve them. Paul, if the Blue Jays miss on Soto, do they actually lock up Vlad, or do they move him? They don't do either one of them. I think if they miss on Soto, I think they're going to turn around and try to get Bregman. I would consider them, really high in, probably the top 2 or 3 teams to be able to sign Bregman. I think he really fits with what they're looking to do this offseason, and if they, for some reason, don't have a successful season, they can turn around and trade Vlad Guerrero Jr. at the deadline and recoup some value, move on from Bo Bichette if Bo Bichette doesn't agree to a contract extension, and if they don't move, or if Bichette moves on, Bregman easily slides over to shortstop as the long-term answer there. Their minor league depth that has, really not worked out for them, that's why they're having having to be thrown around. That's why, like the Blue Jays are having to go out there and spend right now, is because their minor league system hasn't been able to produce. You have to be willing to spend money at a certain point in free agency, and the Blue Jays have so much money right now that they have so much money coming off the books this year and next that they're going to be able to go after any target that they see as a long-term fit for them. Cobra, you heard Verlander to the Padres. I wouldn't be surprised by that, but it's more of a name for me at this point. I'm not sure how much impact he makes on the field. You just dislike the Yankee way, and they're just bullies for their ownership group. I get what you're trying to say. To me, they were the evil empire when I was growing up as well, but they haven't been the evil empire for 15 years now. They haven't really gone out and overspent on top flight free agents in 15 plus years. The last free agent they really did that with was Alex Rodriguez, and that was their own guy at that point. They traded for him from the Texas Rangers when the Rangers couldn't afford to keep his salary on the books. They did the same thing with Giancarlo Stanton, buying the Miami Marlins, bailing them out of their financial situation because of their inability to be able to retain that salary on their roster and still field a competitive team. I wouldn't necessarily fault the Yankees or this current ownership group. Now, the GM, Brian Cashman, he's been there through ups and downs, and he was there when Alex Rodriguez and all those signings were there, and he does come off as a very cocky person. But that's what you have to be. You have to be self-confident in the things that you're doing. Now, the parts that I don't like about Brian Cashman is that he doesn't seem willing to change as far as his approach to going after top flight, talent. He likes to go after power and slug and dominant starting pitchers. Judge was I disagree with you on Judge. That's his own guy. Cole, he already had the front foot in the door anyway because Cole wanted to go to the Yankees. It wasn't the other way around. Cole wanted to go there more than any other place, and they made the money work by giving him a deal that was commensurate with what he was worth on the open market. It wasn't like he was going to go to the Dodgers. It wasn't like he was going to go to the Rangers. There was no chance he was going back to Houston. Pittsburgh was never going to be able to afford him. Boston wasn't even spending at that level because they were trying to do things the Rays and A's way. But I would disagree on both of those two cases that you just mentioned. Judge was their own guy. Cole wanted to be a Yankee, and that's why they made the deal work. Cole wanted to be a Yankee so bad, instead of opting out, he said, oh yeah, I want to opt out. Oh, you're okay with me opting out? Okay, never mind. I'll just opt back in. I want to stay a Yankee. That's how bad Cole wanted to be a Yankee. So I disagree on the Cole one as well. Let's see here. I want the Padres to re-sign Profar, Arise, and sign Sasaki, and I'd be okay. That'd be a great offseason for San Diego. They've been a little bit constricted with financial constraints over the last couple of years, but I would like to see the Padres still be willing to invest. Profar might be the maximum of what they're willing to invest. Arise, I wonder what they're going to be able to do there. Sasaki would be a great get, but I'd say they're probably a second or third place team behind the Dodgers right now, tied with the Rangers in my mind as far as who's going to get Sasaki, but we won't know that answer until next year, or at least in a few weeks anyway, beginning of 2025. As a Jays fan, I'd be very disappointed if we don't get at least Teoscar or Santander. I would agree. I think they need to add a corner outfielder. I think if they miss on Soto, say they bring in Bregman, I think they still have enough money to go out there and bring in a Santander or a Teoscar Hernandez. I think if they say they get Bregman, I think Teoscar goes to Boston, and then you might be left with Santander as the other corner outfielder that you bring in. Let's go ahead and update our Twitter here. Fine saying Conforto signing does not take the Dodgers out on Teoscar Hernandez per sources. Not a surprise there. I mean, they're the Dodgers. They have gobs and gobs of money. We've talked about that at length already, how the Ohtani signing, even though it was 10 years, $700 million, his present day value was $46 million, and that the money that Ohtani brought in from an advertising and revenue standpoint far outstretched any projection models that they were ever expecting when they signed him. They're rolling in money and will be for decades because of their decision to bring him in and the deal that they signed. It's an absolute bargain at $700 million, especially when you consider the deal that Juan Soto is about to sign. I feel like I make great points. I feel like I make overly harsh in my criticism of the Yankees, but I still don't like the team, and they're nasty. They do have some unruly fans. I will agree there. Philadelphia generally has some unruly fans as well. I remember watching several Philadelphia Eagles games and watching them throw snowballs at Santa or cheer when a player has a broken neck out there on the field. That's the epitome of disgusting from a fan base, was that one. But, every team has their harsh moments. And, I wouldn't say I would criticize the Yankees for the quality of their fans. I would just say that every team has some unruly fans. And, by and large, most of us baseball fans, like even me and you, or Mark, I know you're a Blue Jays fan, or Cobra, I know you're a Padres fan, Paul, I know you're a Giants fan. We might be cheering for our own teams, but we realize these other teams have just as good of a chance to win a World Series every year. They try to compete just as hard as my team does to try to win. And they might have Buster Posey as their GM. I might have Chris Young as my GM. Cashman might be their GM. Each one has their different way of going about and doing it. And some thought processes are better than others. Farhan Zaidi had some thoughts as far as platoons and that kind of thing that he thought would work in San Francisco. That didn't work. Missed on several top flight free agents. I think was the biggest downfall of his GM tenure. And the platoons ultimately fell flat. He had one great year where the platoons worked. Gabe Kapler, everything just click, 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 click. But other than that, it was just an ugly time for the Giants, and they are finally turning the page and getting things back on the right track. So, as a baseball fan, I want to see these teams do better. One interesting note I haven't mentioned yet is that the Texas Rangers are currently the only team that enters 2025 without a TV partner right now for their next season. So they said they're going to be announcing it relatively soon, sometime in the next couple of weeks. Maybe even into the new year, but there's several different avenues that they could get or that they could take. But the biggest impact as they go into the winter meetings is they're not going to have that TV money that they've been counting on for the past several years. They're going to have to go about it a different way. The ownership group has given them the ability to add $40+ million to the payroll, that coming from Evan Grant. But they enter this offseason as the only team without a TV contract for next year. I'm curious to see how that affects them. I think that pretty much precludes them from going after a Juan Soto, even if they were interested. But that still means they have $40 million, so they have some flexibility to add some arms, add a piece to that lineup, trade some pieces off that roster if they deem that necessary to try to create some more financial flexibility for additional moves here at the winter meetings. But interesting note, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you see some of the rumors over the next couple of days that the Rangers are doing this all without the safety net of long-term TV money. Phil, you're right. The Philly fans are animals. They absolutely are. In case you guys are wondering, the cheering for somebody who had broken his neck on the football field was when it was the move that basically ended Michael Irvin's career. Basically broke his neck on the field, and they cheered him as he was being hauled off the field. Really disappointing. And, of course, they've gotten into fights in the fans. They're the one team that has a a jail cell or whatever they call it underneath the stadium there for their fans. That's, to me, that just tells me that the teams there have allowed the fan bases to get that rowdy. I think in general Philadelphia fans would tell you that those guys are the exception, not the rule. But they certainly have given the Philly fans a bad name when maybe the good fans need to start having a little bit more say in how their teams handle those unruly fans. So it's been a problem for a couple of decades now, not just for Phillies, not just for 76ers, not just for the Eagles, but for all teams from Philadelphia, that they've allowed it to get that far. And they just say, it's just the city of brotherly love. That's not brotherly love. That's something else. We can admit that's a little over the line. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and double check one more time with X, see if anything else is popping off. It is 9 o'clock Central Time. Nothing there. Check over on MLB Trade Rumors website, see if anything's happening there. Nothing there. Alrighty, so for those of you just joining us, we have the Juan Soto news tonight is that he is expected to agree to terms with one of the Mets. Almost said the Mariners there. One of the Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, or Blue Jays. I'd be very surprised if any other team ultimately got him. There was originally thought to be some dark horses in there, but the bidding has gotten over $700 million. Early this morning, around 10 o'clock this morning, John Heyman reported that the Soto camp already had 2 offers in over $710 million from the Mets and Yankees. Now, the Red Sox were still seen to be in this race. The Blue Jays have taken a little bit of a step back because their offers at least hadn't become quite as public as to what number they were still comfortable with. Dodgers haven't necessarily even submitted an offer, but they're in the also ran category right now, barring some type of major change. It looks like he could end up on the East Coast with one of those 4 clubs. One other bit of news I wanted to get into as well with the Atlanta Braves. They're very keen on having Grant Holmes as one of their starters next year, or at least having him as an option as a starter. It seems their financial constraints are a little bit more than what it might have been previously stated, even though we know their finances because they are a public team. They had a good year last year, but they seem to be very much right up against it. They're willing to stay at the go into that third-year repeater tax, but how much further are they willing to go? I think the article that I read basically made the case that they might be willing to do something impressive to add a back-of-the-rotation starter or a top-end relief pitcher. But it sounds like Mark Bowden, anyway, beat reporter for the Atlanta Braves, believes they would rather go the starting pitcher route if they do something at all, or the corner outfielder route. He doesn't believe a high-leverage guy in the bullpen would be a top priority for them. They want to go, according to him, he believes the Braves want to go into free agency, grab a couple of guys, low-value contracts, and see if one of them catches some fire in spring training and jumps at the role and takes it and runs with it during the season. If that's the case, maybe there's not as much money in there from the Atlanta Braves to go after an Eovaldi, to go after a Shane Bieber like I predicted they would be in there for, or to go after a Walker Buehler the same way a team like the Chicago Cubs may be able to. So if the Braves are looking to stay to a certain number with certain free agents, if you're willing to go past that number, I think you could beat out the Braves for your guy. Texas Rangers, their most heavy competition for Eovaldi is the Atlanta Braves. Braves are relatively close to Houston, where his family resides. Texas, of course, is only a few hours away from his hometown anyway, but we'll see where Eovaldi ultimately ends up. But the important news there is that the Braves are looking corner outfielder, possibly a Jock Peterson reunion could be in the offing there. Wouldn't be a surprise there if they decided to go down that route. Remember that the good news is that they won't be in the World Series with this current roster. I feel Harper is a hot dog, and most of their hitters are streaky. I love Harper as a hitter, man. I mean, he is so good. His transition over to first base has been flawless. His defense over there has been very good. Really like Bryce Harper, the player. He's really matured as a player and as a person as well. I don't think he's anywhere near the hot dog he was early in his career. I don't even think he's a hot dog at all. I think he's that good of an offensive player and defensive player now that he's moved over to first base. The injury risk now is a little bit settled down because he's not crashing into the wall every time. That's why he would continually get injured. Mike Trout had the same problem. I wonder what would have happened to Mike Trout's career if they had moved him to the infield spot earlier in his career rather than let injuries really dismantle the best player in Major League Baseball. Trout is no longer in that top 15, top 20 discussion for best player in the game. Bryce Harper, I would say, is still in the competition for top 10, maybe even top 5, depending on the year. I really like the way that team is built out, but falling flat in the playoffs 2 years in a row does not sit well with the fan base there, does not sit well with ownership or Dave Dombrowski. They are going to be active. They're going to look to move things around. Alec Boehm has been mentioned as a trade candidate several different points so far this offseason. Castellanos as well, and to some extent Ranger Suarez. Now, if they move on from one of their starting pitchers, of course they need to fill that spot in their rotation. They've been connected to Max Scherzer if they decide to go that route as well. Alec Boehm has been connected in a trade with the Seattle Mariners. Their original ask was Logan Gilbert and Jordan Kirby. Obviously, you're not getting either one of those two guys. I would speculate it would be impossible for them to even get Brian Wu. We mentioned a trade possibility of a Luis Castillo going to the Phillies in exchange for Boehm. Would be a good fit there if the Mariners were willing to eat a little bit of money on the Castillo deal. And then the Phillies would then be able to turn around and sign Alex Bregman. I think that would be a great get for them to kind of jumpstart that team a little bit and push them forward into October. So could be a very interesting offseason for the Philadelphia Phillies, but I do expect them to shake things up to some extent. Let's go ahead and head back over to X and just see if anything else is happening. Thought I just saw something pop on my phone for just a second there. Nope, just still more headlines about the Michael Conforto signing. That is the first official move of the winter meetings. 1 year, $17 million to Michael Conforto. I would expect the Soto deal hopefully here in the next couple of hours. We'll probably be logging off here in about another 10-15 minutes if the deal doesn't break. But if it does break later on this evening, be sure to turn on your notifications. Follow us on X, @UpsideSN. Follow us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already on this video. Hit that like as well. Appreciate those of you who have already liked the video. It's got a few likes on there, so thank you very much. And we'll be bringing you tons of live coverage from the winter meetings as well. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat or after the video is over. If you guys want to post them in the chat while you rewatch if you want. I'll try to look at some of those comments and see if we can answer your questions in our next live as well. If you feel like supporting the channel, I know we've got a few people out there who have done so in the past and send us some super chats. Always welcome. And we will prioritize those questions that are asked by those who send super chats first. But thank you guys for joining us this evening. With any luck, we'll get another breaking news segment in tonight. But make sure you turn on those notifications and we will go live as quickly as possible when those things happen. So, alrighty. Keep your fingers crossed, and we'll see you guys hopefully later on this evening. We will have an update for you guys tomorrow morning if there isn't one. Say Soto takes his decision into tomorrow morning. We will then be live probably around the 9 a.m. hour Central Time. We'll do another live around 1 and then another one later in the evening with some short videos in between with some updates as far as moves that are happening. It is the winter meetings. We are going to see some activity, so expect a flurry of videos coming out tomorrow. We will keep you updated as best we can. Thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we'll see you guys a little later.